So in this lesson, we're going to cover a few features that are fairly essential that we haven't implemented in our website yet. And I'll just scroll through so you can get a sense of how my demo site is looking. So I've been taking various sections, throwing some content into them. We've now swapped our images out. The footer, which we'll come to further, here it is. The footer, that's definitely an essential feature that we're going to look at customizing in this lesson. I've added a little contact section down here. We're going to create an anchor link that takes us to that. So although it lives at the bottom of the home page, we'll have that appear in our menu at the top. So I'll show you how to do that. I've changed our button to book a tour, but we will be adding social links at the top here. And I added some content to, I've just got 2 sub pages for this sample site. So a simple about page, but quite effective. And again, these are just customizing the elements that Squarespace gives us in the templates, and a brewing process page. So this just gives you a little idea what can be done. And it's very quick, very easy to achieve. It's a really design first web design. So let's start by maybe working on the header, and then we'll go to the footer. So we want to add our social media links, and I'll show you how I've included this button, which takes us to a book a tour page, which isn't linked in my navigation heading to the left. So let's enter edit mode by double clicking. Then I hover up and select edit site header. And under elements, you'll see that I have a button enabled. If I disabled the button, then that would disappear. And if we go back, the layout we've chosen for our desktop view, the header layout, that dictates how each of these elements will be positioned. So I could just as easily position the logo to the left, have a navigation in the center, and then any buttons or social elements to the right. But I'm going to stick with this layout, and we'll go back to elements, enable our button, which takes me to my book a tour page. Again, to link pages, you can either type the exact URL. If you start with a /, that will always take you to the first directory after your website. You probably don't want to look at it that way. To make it easier, Squarespace enables you to just begin typing with a / and you see a list of your pages appear below. And there's my book a tour page. So we also have a toggle for social links. So I'm going to turn that on. And you can see as placeholders, we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. But if we click on edit social links, when you begin typing, Squarespace automatically assigns the correct icon for that social platform. So if I begin typing Twitch, in there you can see the Twitch icon appears. So for the purposes of this demo site, I'll just leave these links actually pointing to Squarespace's social media profiles for those platforms. So that's fine. We've got our social links in there. The header's looking good. We'll use the navigation to add an anchor link, which will take us down to our contact form at the bottom of the home page. But first, let's just style the footer. So I've decided to keep this website with a dark theme, and you can alternate quite effectively. You could swap from dark sections to light sections to break up the design. But throughout the rest of the site, I've kind of kept the dark theme going all the way through. So I'm going to the exception to that is this little contact strip, which I don't mind standing out, but I am going to change this for the footer. So again, if I double click anywhere on the page to enter edit mode, and then move to hover over the footer section, comes up with edit footer, works in much the same way as the header. But this time the footer functions much more like a regular page with blocks. So at the moment, we've got this layout here, which actually uses the grid system, and you can move these text blocks. They started us off with around. I'm going to go for something a little more simple. So this section here, I'm not going to include. You can choose to discreetly, which I often do, put designed and developed by and your name when you're creating a website for a client. I'm going to delete that for now. I'm going to stretch this text and I'll try to center this. There we are. Across the bottom. Center the content. I'll place the address on one line, a contact number on the other line, and the name of a brewery. I'm quite happy to keep the social links, but I think I'll position them centered. So if I click the edit button, the design tab, I can choose center alignment. I could also change the size, but I'm quite happy with that. And then I'm going to click edit section and change the colors for the entire footer to, I think I'll go for a dark black to finish it off with some nice strong contrast. And if I wanted, a nice little touch can be to add, if not the full logo at the bottom, I could add maybe the submark. So I think I'll do that. So this works the same as our regular pages. I'll add a block, drag an image. Allow quite a small area for this. And it means I'm just going to have to drag the rest of my content down. So to do that, I'll start with the social links. And if you drag below the bottom of the grid, it will just extend the grid for you. It will create extra rows. At the moment, the grid is configured to align from the top, so your extra blocks will go down. So let's drag that image placeholder just there. I think I'll give it about that much room, so quite a small little space for our submark. I'll move the text up. I'll move the social links back up. And then I'll click edit, content, and upload my submark. And there we are. So a little touch, but I think that looks really smart. And now you'll notice our grid, it's still giving us more lines than we needed. So you don't have to go into edit section. You can, as you hover, there's this little, it looks like a paragraph icon, but this indicates that you can drag the grid up. So I'll click and drag that until we've closed up the unneeded space. Save my changes. And there we are. A nice, simple, clean footer, which is the way I like to keep it. So next, let's create an anchor link that's going to take us down to our Contact Us section. So this isn't as straightforward as it could be. I'm hoping it's something Squarespace might change, but I'll show you the current method to do this. So first of all, I need to enter edit mode by double clicking, and I have to add a special type of block, and it's the code block. So ideally, I want this code block to be positioned as high up as I can within the section. So to enable that, I'm going to move these existing sections down a little bit. You can actually overlap one section on top of another. And I'm just going to position my bit of code there. Now the code won't show anything. It's going to be hidden. We're not going to have this hello world showing. So it's actually okay if it's overlapping as I've done there. But I just wanted to move things down so that it's easy for me to click and access. So if I click edit, the code we need to use to create the destination for our anchor link, the code we need to use is, and of course you can copy this, you don't need to memorize it, an open triangular bracket, P space ID equals, then we open quotation marks, And between those quotation marks, we put the name of the anchor link. The anchor link name, that's the name we'll use when we create a link that jumps to it. And it will appear in the URL bar at the very end. There will be a hashtag and then whichever anchor tag we choose. So I'm going to use contact, close off those open brackets, and then we need to close this off with another open bracket, /P, and close the brackets. So that's as much coding as hopefully you'll need to do to create a basic Squarespace site. But there's lots more code that you can add and use to tweak and to customize things further. But that's going to be beyond the scope of this class. So with our code for our destination anchor tag created, so remember it's contact. You can even copy that to make sure that it's exactly right. I'm going to click off, save that page, and now we need to add a link to our navigation. So in the sidebar, make sure you're under pages, you're looking at the main navigation, and click the plus button to add what is currently the final option, a link. And the title we choose is the link name as it will appear in the navigation along the top in our header, but it's not the anchor tag, not yet. So for example, this could say contact us, but our actual anchor link could just use contact, which we had copied from earlier. So the way to create this anchor link is to use a hash symbol and then the link name that we've chosen. As simple as that. But because this link might be clicked from different pages in the website, we also have to add a /first to indicate that we want Squarespace to go back to the home directory. So we're indicating this anchor link is placed on the first /, that's the root directory. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, but trust me, it works. So if your anchor link were on a different page, for example, if it were on the about page, you would type the link out as it's showing you here. So it would be /about us, then the hashtag, then contact. That would take us to that same anchor link position if it were placed on one of those sub pages. So we've placed it on the home page. We're using this /hashtag and then our link. We'll click save. I'm going to drag that so it appears as a last item in our navigation. And then even though we're in the back end of Squarespace, if I click that link, you should see it jumps us down the page and it's taken us directly to that target link that we created. So that's a very long-winded way of doing what in some other platforms is quite straightforward. So this is a feature I'm hoping Squarespace will update, but at the same time it's not too much headache to implement. So you could add as many anchor targets and anchor links as you wanted. You could use that same / hashtag and your target name to create a link from a button, from a highlighted portion of text. That would be the process for doing it. Now, one final and essential feature that we need to consider is the mobile view. Now, if you click along the top right, you can toggle between the desktop and mobile view. And most of the time, if you design on desktop first, Squarespace does a really good job of converting the content responsively and everything lines up just fine. But we're going to click this now, and I haven't reviewed this yet for my website. And as we scroll down, we're just going to have to look for any areas where perhaps the spacing, the alignment, something hasn't lined up just right on the mobile view. And here I've spotted the first one. I don't like the fact this button, it falls directly onto the section below it. So again, to enter edit mode, you just double click anywhere on the page. And what's nice is any adjustments I make to this mobile view, it's not going to reflect them on the desktop view if they're layout and grid changes. So I'm going to drag just to create an extra cell of space below that button, and I'll save that change. So that fixes that issue for mobile view, and if I go back to the desktop view, our layout remains the same. So it's designed in such a way that if you begin with your desktop layout, you go through and you can fine-tune and make adjustments non-destructively. If I were to edit and change text, well, obviously that change would be reflected on both views. So this is just for grids. Any changes you make to the fine-tuning, the positioning on the mobile grid, Squarespace has a way of preserving that, not changing it, not spoiling your desktop layout. So the rest of that page is looking good. There's perhaps a little bit too much negative space at the bottom here. So that has been caused by our code for the anchor link, which on the mobile view, interestingly, it's placed at the bottom. So I'm going to need to shift things down, and I obviously want my code to appear at the top. Now, a handy feature you can use, and I think to my knowledge this only applies on a mobile view, is there's this little arrow here that says move up, and you can move an element up the mobile grid. So I'm going to click that once, twice, and there we are. That now starts with our code. When a visitor views that from the front end, remember we're in the back end, that code shouldn't create any space. So that can be ignored in terms of the layout and the spacing. So again, I'm going to save that change. Also noticed on the mobile view, the footer isn't working as I'd like. So I'm glad I'm running into a few of these little issues to tweak, because this is showing you what you might need to do for your website. So again, double click to enter edit mode. We'll click edit footer, hovering over it. And I think the issue here is just that it's tried to add some negative space to the side. So I'm going to drag and just make sure my elements go across the full width of the screen. And then my image, I think, can afford to be a little smaller. So I'll give it less space to work within. I'll position it in the center of the grid. And then I'll use that handy move up feature to just shift it to the top as we want it to be positioned. So it only takes a few seconds to iron out some of the creases, but well worth running through your website once you've finished and just checking that nothing like that has happened for the mobile view. So I won't run through every page, but please run through each of the pages in your website and just make little tweaks, little adjustments to make sure the mobile layout is looking as it should. So I'm quite happy with my sample website. Hopefully you're happy with what you've created so far. In the next lesson, we'll look at some pro tips that can help you to put that finishing touch on your website.